All right, let's do it. Turn me down a little bit. First of all, it's a little loud to start things off. But welcome to a Tuesday edition of Flamesnation Live. It's Pat Steinberg along with you here from our Sportsnet 960 downtown studios, and let's jump right in. We get your questions in on the chat live as we're live on Facebook Live right now. Noah's in, Mike's in, Jordan's in. So Gaurav just got in, so we've got lots of the regulars in with us on this Tuesday evening. And it's a Tuesday evening after a Monday evening win over the Vancouver Canucks. An overtime win. Johnny Gaudreau, nice little finish on the overtime winner last night. And much needed, because how bad was Saturday's game? How bad was that outing? I know that it was a 3-1 score, and I know that the Flames were a shot away from winning into the final 5 minutes or so of the third period, but that was solely because of one man. That was solely because of the work of Jacob Markstrom, who was outstanding. So, yeah, they were not very good on Saturday. They needed to be a whole lot better on Monday. I don't know if they were incredible on Monday, but they were better than they were on Saturday, and that, of course, is a good first step. Here's the one thing that we know so far through 15 games. We're already into the second quarter of the season, which is hard to wrap your head around. But here's one thing that we know above all else, and that is Jacob Markstrom has been unbelievable. Like, we're talking about a top 2 or 3 goalie in the league right now, and we're talking about a guy that, probably has been the best goaltender in the North Division. I mean, Carey Price and Montreal's been solid. Freddie Anderson's been good in Toronto. But, I mean, I think you could probably make a fairly salient argument that Jacob Markstrom has been the best goaltender in the North Division. So that's one thing that we know through the first quarter of the season. But the rest, well, we don't know a whole lot, because it has been so up and down. It has been such an inconsistent first little part of the season here. So that has got to be infuriating if you're a Flames fan. That has got to be frustrating, and at the same time kind of tired if you're a Flames fan, because it's something that, well, really, we've gotten used to over the last decade. Certainly with this core of players, inconsistency has been kind of what we're used to. So they needed the win. They got the win. Good finish from Johnny Gaudreau. It was only 44 seconds after Vancouver tied it. Remember, Brock Besser ties it in the final minute, and then they go to the overtime intermission, and then 23 seconds into overtime, Johnny Gaudreau wins it, still on the power play. So the Flames will take it. They needed it, but I think that we're all very, very aware that they need to be a whole lot more consistent, and they need to be not only consistent, but they need to be at a consistently higher level. Let's get into some of the topics. Josh, just 3 words: Bennett, Bennett, Bennett. And Mike says, do you think they should keep the bubble boy line, Lucic, Benny, and Dubé together? Well, this is an interesting one, because I don't think we're talking about a major injury to Michael Backlund. Like, he might be back in the lineup tomorrow. They might hold him out for another game, but he might be back in Wednesday against the Canucks. So if you bring Backlund back in, I'm curious what you do. Do you go back to the lines the way they were before? If you don't, well, then what do you do with Backlund? Because that essentially turns Backlund into your fourth line center, does it not? Like, if you're going to go Lindholmen, or I guess it turns the Bennett line into the fourth line. It's one of the two. Because if you're going to go Lindholmen, Monahan, Bennett as centers, and then you also bring Backlund back in as a center, I don't know. I don't know if you do keep it that way. Like, I think there's plenty to suggest that keeping Lucic, Bennett, and Dubé together is a smart move. I thought they were the best line in the win over Vancouver last night. I really did. But, what is the best move here if you have Backlund healthy as well? It's really interesting. If it were me, Backlund healthy, I think I probably move Bennett back to the wing with Gaudreau and Monahan. You're still giving him an opportunity. But I don't know. I like that. That's a tough one. I probably go back to Backlund with Lucic, and maybe it's either Dubé or Mangiapane. I think you've got that opportunity. But I'm like, what do you think? Do you stick with that line, or do you split them up when Backlund's ready to come back? It's an interesting it's an interesting conversation to have. Some other conversations. Kyle goes, Tkachuk struggles and inconsistent play is concerning. Hopefully he can get it going because he's fighting it right now. And Jordan follows up, seriously, what's up with Matthew? I'm a bit worried that he's deflated from what happened around the Muzzin mugging. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Matthew Tkachuk. I really don't. I mean, I've observed what you've observed. He has not been anywhere near as consistent as we're used to him being. He has not been anywhere near as consistent as he needs to be. And I think the thing that is maybe the most noticeable on the Tkachuk front is that he's doing things, he's not doing things right now that we're used to him doing on a regular basis, in that he makes a lot of really important, subtle plays, difficult plays, but subtle plays, but he makes them look easy. And now they're not happening, or now they're not being executed at the same level, or they're not being completed at the same level. And I think it's been quite noticeable. This is the most out of sorts I can ever remember Tkachuk, even going back to his rookie season in the NHL. So now in year 5, yeah, they need him to get things back into sorts. If they're out of sorts, they got to get back into sorts because they need him to be better than what he has been to this point. So that is definitely something that I have noticed. That is definitely something that I wish I had an answer for. Like, there are different theories out there. There have been theories about the fact that maybe it had something to do with that nobody came to his aid in the Muzzin situation with the Maple Leafs. There's been suggestions out there that there were conversations in that players-only meeting that said, hey, we need you to tone it down. I wasn't in that players-only meeting, so I don't know. But there's plenty of theories out there that that you could point to and say, well, maybe that's what's going on with Matthew, but I don't think any of us know, because I don't think anybody's going to tell us, and we're not there, so I don't think we know at this point. Jason asks, who's the best option to play with Johnny and Sean once Backlund's back in the lineup? Levo and Simone don't work. Other than Bennett, who's an option? The only other option that I see is Dubé. And maybe they do go that way at some point. But I thought Bennett was starting to work there. If Backlund's back tomorrow, or even if we're going into Friday, Saturday against the Oilers, when Backlund is back, and we believe that to be in the somewhat near future, I would go Bennett back with Gaudreau and Monahan. As much as I like him playing with Lucic and Dubé, I still think Backlund's play has been trending in a really good direction and has been really good for the last few weeks. So I think that you almost have to put him back with the line that was working there. And because Bennett had been starting to trend in the right direction with Monahan and Gaudreau, I think that's probably where I would put him back. We'll see. We'll see if Backlund's good to go. But I think so far, the best fit, both for the team and on the line, has been Bennett there. Like, I think Mangiapane was good there too, but I think he fits better elsewhere. I think he fits better on the line with Lindholmen and Tkachuk, or better on the line with Backlund and Lucic than I do there. Not to say I thought he was very good in that role and in that spot, but I still think Bennett is the team's best fit so far, playing with Monahan and Gaudreau. Here's one from Travis who says, doesn't this team have the same problem it's had every year, not enough offense? If the main guys don't score, this team doesn't win. They're once again a fringe playoff team. Nothing has changed. Yeah, we have not seen a ton of secondary scoring. Like, Dubé's provided a little bit more, but he has been playing in the top 6 for a good chunk of this season. So I don't know if you consider Dubé depth scoring. Monahan has only scored twice this year. I think that's part of it. Gaudreau has been scoring. Tkachuk's been, we talked about his inconsistency. I do think that remains an issue, that we thought depth was going to be a strength for this team. And we thought that was going to be the area that they excelled in. But that really, forward depth really hasn't been their calling card to this point. Levo has been up and down. Simone has been very ineffective and has been given a great opportunity playing with Monahan and Gaudreau and hasn't been able to really do anything with it. Nordstrom a little bit different because he's in more of a little bit of a specialized role. He's kind of in that penalty killing role. But yeah, the depth has not been the strength that I think we thought it was going to be for Calgary, at least when it comes to the forward group. Somebody asked a little bit earlier about Conor Mackey. Elias asked, do you think Mackey should stay in the lineup? Well, the depth in the blue line has been a whole lot better. The depth in the blue line's been very good. The fact that they could take Nestorov out and put Mackey in and not really miss a beat. I know Mackey took the 6 penalty minutes, the 3 minor penalties on Monday night, and that is definitely a concern. You don't want that to be a regular thing, but Mackey's looked like an NHL defenseman in the 2 games he's played. He played 1 game with Valimaki. He played the last game with Anderson. I don't mind what I've seen from Conor Mackey at all. So they could very well keep him in the lineup. It's curious because the American League season is starting. Maybe you do put him in the American League here and there, play him there for a little bit, and then you can bring him back into the NHL lineup. I mean, ideally you'd like to just have 3 pairings that you roll every single night, but if that's the case, well, then maybe you put Mackey in the American League full time. Not to say that he's played poorly, but you also want Nestorov playing, and Nestorov's been good. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I don't think Mackey has played himself out of the lineup, but I also didn't think Nestorov played himself out of the lineup. So I think both you have to weigh in this conversation, and I would put Nestorov back here sometime in the near future. Allison says Bennett's been fired since the trade talk started. I don't see him being dealt this season. Well, the thing is, on the Bennett front, if he wants to be dealt, I still think dealing him is the best way to go about it. Now, maybe you wait until the offseason. Maybe that is the way to go. But if you can raise his trade value and strike maybe while the iron's hot, and he has been a little bit better since the trade request has come out. Like, I don't think he's been – I thought his best game was – actually, I thought his best game was probably last night, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I thought Bennett was pretty strong last night. If you can raise his trade value and get the interest up and still fulfill his trade request, if it's still there, then I still think that's the best option for you. I don't think not trading – if he wants to go – and not trading him just for the sake of not trading him, I don't think that's the way to go. I do think it behooves them to go out and make sure that you get the best possible value for him. Don't give him away for nothing. So if you got to wait a little bit to get his value up, for sure I get that. But just trading him for the sake of not trading him, I would still move him if you can get good value, Allison, and if you can actually maximize what you've got. If you can't, then yeah, I think stick with them on the team the rest of the year. I can totally understand that. What else we got here? This from Dylan. Nordstrom needs to get out of the lineup. Just too much of a liability as he's top 10 in turnovers, giveaways. Need Ritchie and or Godin to get in. I would have liked to see Godin get in on this road trip. I was actually kind of interested to see if that was going to happen. It didn't. They didn't end up going that way, but I was interested to see if they might have given him an opportunity. I still think Godin's a guy that could get in. Ritchie, I think they have talked about him getting in. He hasn't played yet, but I do think at some point he'll be an option for them to play as well. See, the thing with Nordstrom is he's actually a pretty effective penalty killer, so that's part of the reason why he stayed in. I do think his play has gotten better 5-on-5, because I'm with you. He was a real issue earlier. I do think it's gotten better in recent games. So I don't think he has been a massive problem recently. Of all of them, the guy who's been the most underwhelming of all those 4 one-year deals they signed, Nestorov on the blue line, then the 3 forwards, Levo, Nordstrom, and Simone. It's been Simone that has been the least impactful and the most underwhelming. Like, he has done nothing, and he, like, very few flashes. Very few stretches where you've been like, yeah, he's a good fit with Monahan and Gaudreau. He keeps on getting gifted that opportunity and hasn't done much with it. He's the guy that has been the most underwhelming. At least you've seen, like, really the first penalty killing duo is Nordstrom and Lindholm. Those are the first two guys over the boards with Giordano and Tanev. So at least there's value there, and I do think the 5-on-5, albeit limited role he plays, he's gotten better at. I think the turnovers and some of the really rough stuff that you've seen from him has come down a little bit. So I understand why Nordstrom is staying in. It's Simone, the one for me that is tough to justify getting in there on a regular basis. Now, I do agree to Jason's point that Nordstrom had a rough game last night. I agree there. But I think if I'm looking at the bigger picture over the last, say, 10 games or so, it's been better than it was the first 5 games or so. But yes, I do agree that he had a rough game last night at 5-on-5. Allison, back to the Bennett point, says that's the problem. What could they realistically get? I don't know. I really don't have a feel on what the market is for Bennett right now. But the better he plays, the more opportunity he gets, the better potential return you might be able to get for him. Jordan says, what are your thoughts on the Lindholm at center experiment? I've liked it. I mean, and I'm Jordan, I don't know about you, but I think he's been very good. He's he scored 5 goals in 15 games. Not like he's shooting the lights out, but he's being played in every situation. He's the number 1 center over the boards on the penalty kill. He's one of the first guys over the board on the power play. On top of that, he plays the most minutes, most nights at 5-on-5. I think he's been very good. Defensively, he's been responsible. The offense has not been mind-blowing, but it hasn't been bad either. So I think, Jordan, it's been very, very good. I would give that one of the higher ratings on the team. Like, we're more than a quarter of the way through the season. The guys that I would give top marks on this team so far would be Markstrom, Tanev, Hanifin. You probably, based on a more sliding scale, throw Valimaki into there. And then up front, Lindholm, he would be the guy leading the way. And then probably to a lesser extent, Mangiapane, Gaudreau, those would be the guys that I would give kind of the highest marks on at this point. But I think Lindholm's been their best forward so far this season. I really do. I really think that he has done exactly what they have asked him to do in that spot. Jordan agrees. Been scored only the 5 goals, but more than a point per game. Yeah, I'm with you, Jordan. He's been very, very good to this point. Few more questions to wrap it up, as we'll be back on Thursday. I think we'll do another one with Ryan Pike. Jason asks the $1 million question: does Riddick start tomorrow? I have no feel as to what they're going to do. I thought yesterday was a good time to go to Riddick. They went to Markstrom. I think you understood that too. But I don't know. Like, if it were me, I think you've got to get Riddick in, and I would get him in tomorrow. I don't know what they're going to do. My opinion, he should start. My read, I have no idea what's going to happen. Elias says, why don't all Flames players play like Mangiapane did last night? I don't think he got a point, but he made an impact with his intensity on the forecheck and was great defensively. Just like, what else is new with Mangiapane, right, Elias? That's all that guy does. I mean, you can count on one hand each season how many truly poor games he has. Even if he's not feeling it, even if he's not at his best, he never cheats you on effort. He never cheats you on intensity, and that's why having him on this team is a really, really big asset. Dylan, to wrap things up on the Bennett front, says, I don't think the Flames want to move Bennett, but want to get value for him before just letting him walk in expansion. Well, the other thing is, Dylan, he's requested a trade, so when you request a trade, it kind of adds a little bit to that as well. I don't think they want to trade Bennett either, but he wants a change of scenery, and expansion draft is coming up. There's just a lot there that plays into the whole thing that I do think. Do I think it's impossible that Bennett is here next season? No. Do I think it's likely? The answer to that question is also no. If I were a betting man, I would say Bennett's playing elsewhere next year, but that's not a foregone conclusion. That's not a guarantee. But and I've been wrong many times before. But if I were a betting man, I'd suggest that he is elsewhere for next season. And Josh says, what about floating Bennett in front of Seattle to protect the rest of the lineup? Maybe you could do that. Maybe you could. the thing is, I mean, I would rather not lose him in expansion. I would rather trade Bennett elsewhere than lose him in expansion. Even if you don't get massive return, I'd still rather, and maybe that isn't a conversation until the end of the season, but I'd still rather trade him, get something, than lose him for nothing in expansion. We'll see where Bennett plays tomorrow. We'll see if Backlund's back tomorrow. We'll see if Riddick starts tomorrow. That is the next game for Calgary. Vancouver, 8 o'clock face-off at the Scotiabank Saddledome. We've got it for you on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. 7 o'clock pregame show with Peter Labardius and me, and then the puck drops at 8 o'clock on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Catch the big show 1 till 6 every day on Sportsnet 960 The Fan as well. A quick plug, lots going on at Flames Nation right now. I've got my little retrospective up on Craig Conroy, who is 10 years in to his management career. So go check that out. I really do think Conroy is a really interesting candidate going forward as a potential GM elsewhere, but still driven by one thing, and that's to win a Stanley Cup. That article is up at flamesnation.ca today. Full game coverage at flamesnation.ca from Pike, from Mike Gold, who's going to be starting to work the Stockton Heat in Calgary beat because they start their season coming up on Sunday. Join Pike and me on Thursday. For now, though, be safe, be kind to one another, and stay warm even though it's warmer outside. Thanks for stopping by on another edition of Flames Nation Live. Be well. We'll talk to you in a couple of days. It's been a fun one as always. Thank you, everybody.